This is your daily reminder to apply your cuticle oil. It'll keep your nails moisturized and prevent them from getting brittle and breaky.
Welcome back to Nail Babe Pod. I'm your host, Abe, the Nail Babe, a podcast dedicated to interviewing the nail babes of the nail world. If you don't know me, I'm Abe, a full-time nail polish content creator and now podcaster. New episodes every Thursday. This week, my nail babe is Sig from Nail Art by Sig. Ever heard of Harry Styles? Ever heard of his brand, Pleasing? Pleasing named Sig their first nail artist. She's painted Harry Styles' nails multiple times and has worked on both sides of the equation, corporate OPI, and now a full-time nail creator. So without any further ado, lotion your hands, oil those cuticles, and let's welcome Sig to the pod. I'm so excited to welcome Sig, Nail Art by Sig on Instagram.
Hi, everybody.
Of course, you guys know her as a beautiful nail artist. She also has her own cuticle oil and is the nail artist for Pleasing, Harry Styles' brand.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
How did the daily reminder for cuticle oil start?
The daily reminder for cuticle oil started during quarantine.
Oh.
Yeah, so I got through quarantine by creating content. At the time, I was working with OPI on the marketing team. I was the North America education manager. Even though I had a full-time job and nails has always been a passion of mine and a hobby and sort of morphed into my job, I still loved creating art on the side. I was creating a lot of content and I had to create some content that showcased people about nail care because at that time, obviously salons were closed. People were stuck with gels, acrylics, dip, and they didn't know how to get off and they didn't know nail care. So that's kind of how that started, just applying the Pro Spa cuticle oil to go, created some content and just kind of turned into a thing, I guess. It's actually really amazing just to see people care about nail art and also post reminders too. Like obviously nails can look beautiful on their own, but for me, if the base and the structure isn't healthy or happy, then the rest is kind of like for naught. So nail care is super important to me.
I feel like people don't realize how much cuticle oil solves everything. At least for when I'm filling my nails, if they look bad, I'm like, well, let's just add some cuticle oil, and it literally makes everything look good.
Also, too, it helps save time later when you go to prep your nails again. It won't be as much of a reconstruction. Your cuticles are hydrated. The surrounding skin isn't as dry. There isn't much of that booger that I talk about a lot on the nail plate. And so it just helps overall. I think it's a time saver and just also just a moment of self-care.
And also for cleanup too, because if your skin is really dried out, the polish will seep in and you'll never be able to clean up.
And those nooks and crannies, it's so annoying. Then you have residue of red polish on it or something blue that's even worse.
Okay, well, I want to get your Spark Note version of how you got into nail polish. So my example I give is simply nailogical, COVID boredom, and self-expression. So if you can give us how you got into nail polish.
Unemployment, artistic longering, I guess. And creativity and color.
Okay, I like that. So when did this start?
April 2020, 2013. Okay. So 10 years ago. I was a recent college graduate. Even though I had almost half a dozen internships under my belt, I studied journalism. I still couldn't get a full-time job. I studied print journalism. So I actually used to work at newspapers as a reporter, which obviously don't exist like they used to. So I was unemployed in my studio apartment in Tarzana and was watching E! News. And Tom Bachek was on there. I don't know if he's a mega celebrity nail artist who I've looked up to since back in April 2013. He was doing a segment on E! News about party nails. And it was animal print nail art. And if you do one accent nail, it elevates the look or whatever. And I was really intrigued and also really bored and also needed something to do. And so I did that double click on Instagram and found out that there was a whole community about nail bloggers. And then just kind of didn't turn back from there.
I'm guessing you could carry some of those skills over from
So actually I couldn't land a full-time job as a newspaper journalist, but in my journey of nail art, I found out through Twitter that there was magazines dedicated to the nail industry, the professional nail industry. And so in the US, there was a Nails magazine, and then there was Nail Pro magazine, and they were competitor magazines. And Nails magazine was looking for a freelancer for $25 an article to write for their consumer blog. And I reached out to the editor via Twitter and applied for multiple jobs there that I didn't land until eventually I did. I was very persistent, I guess. And I was an editor for Nails magazine for about 3 years. So I did still work in journalism and in print. It just didn't look the way that I thought it did when I was in school. I would have never imagined that I would be writing about nails, interviewing the best educators, talking to the industry leaders, manufacturers. It's how I learned about all the brands. And somewhere in between there, I was juggling 40 hours a week as an editor and nail school.
Yeah, because you're a licensed nail tech, right?
Mm-hmm. So I was like editor by day, nail school student by night. I went to nail school in Garden Grove, California, which is like a 60-mile drive from my apartment. But I chose that school because of its rich heritage. Garden Grove is called Little Saigon. So it's like Little Vietnam. And Vietnam has a lot of culture in the nail industry, a lot of history in the nail industry. I'm not sure if you're aware.
I mean, I just feel like I see all the like Asian nail and like Korean nail art and all that. Like, I don't know, but I definitely see.
So the nail school that I went to is owned by a Vietnamese family. And so I just thought it just made a lot of sense to me. I was ingrained in the whole industry and the history. So it made sense. My first day of nail school, I got there and I realized that they were teaching it in Vietnamese. And so I had to learn by the book.
Now you're fluent in Vietnamese.
Absolutely not. It was, I wouldn't trade that for anything. It was a really interesting experience. And it was temporary. It was only for like 6 months or so. So it was worth it.
I love that you were learning about the nail industry from like experts, like interviewing them and like writing articles. Like you were really getting the like the best knowledge right from the source.
Yeah. One of my favorite memories before COVID, and this is like 2015, 2013, there used to be a lot of beauty show expos for professional hairdressers, professional nail artists, where the manufacturer would go and have a booth there and they would have their top educators showcasing their latest products and techniques. And I was always obsessed with social media too. So I would record them showing their techniques, teaching people how to do it. So I was really like in the trenches with them, learning from the best. And looking back now, it's such an incredible experience and so grateful for that. And they inspired me to go to nail school. All of those people. I have a lot of mentors from back in the day who I still look up to now. And I don't think I'd have the career that I have without them pushing me and inspiring me. So.
And so you created your Instagram back in 2013?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then doing this whole process, you were like posting on Instagram your nails and doing that?
Yeah, it was like a combo of my DIY nail art with a mix of like the articles or the trends that I was reporting about for the magazine. Cause I would collect a lot of nail art before like social media was what it is today. We would actually ask people to submit their nail tips to the office and we'd photograph them
the physical tip.
Like the actual nail
I thought you meant like tips and tricks.
No, I mean, yes, tips and tricks, but also show us your tips and tricks with a nail tip. And I used to write the technique column. So like if you wanted to show people your technique on how to do a really cool heart design, you would do step 1 on one nail tip, step 2 on the second nail tip, step 3, and it's building up each way. And at the end, you have the final look.
That was before they invented video.
Yeah, I mean, we had video, but these were nail techs who were working full-time in the salon, and it gave them that opportunity for notoriety with being published in the magazine and all that. So
that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I feel like it is a thing. Making videos itself, I feel like for me is the product. Whereas like when I look at like people who are like licensed nail techs or who are doing clients' nails on video, that is the main goal, right? Is to do the client's nails and the video a second often, which makes sense. Whereas for me, like sometimes I'm not painting my sidewalls or like on camera, like I'll go on and fix it after because like my main goal is the video. So I guess that makes sense that you would actually paint the physical nail because that's what you're doing to teach.
Yeah. I mean, for those nail techs who do that on a daily basis, who have their clientele, create nails that last and then still create content out of that, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's 2 separate whole jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you wanted to go to nail school. What was the goal for that? To like paint other people's nails or like what was the reasoning for that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the goal mostly was to be legitimate, kind of know what I'm talking about.
To like have the, I don't know, because I'm like, you were probably legitimate before this, right? Or do you think no?
I mean, I don't think so. Everything that
Okay.
I was blogging about at that point, before I was at the magazine, was DIY stuff.
Okay.
The best white nail polish. Here are some New Year's Eve inspiration nail art. Like, I just bought this Etsy shake. Here's what it looks like. That was just very, like, from a DIYer's point of view. It wasn't, I didn't know what the sidewall was. I didn't know the difference between a nail bed and a nail plate.
Okay.
The nail matrix, like those things. And so when I would interview people, I was learning at the same time as they were sharing their knowledge. But also I was young. I was in my 20s. And so I figured I had the time then and the energy. So why not?
I just didn't know if it was a thing of like needing the like certificate to like prove to brands that like, no, I know what I'm talking about. I didn't know if it was that.
Yeah, it was more a sense of like curiosity, because I didn't have the ambition to necessarily be like a full-time nail tech, even though I was eventually, after I got my license, I did work in the salon on the weekends. Oh. I was still working as an editor Monday through Friday. And then on Saturdays, I would work at a salon called House of Polish. And I worked with really incredible nail techs who are still really good friends of mine today. I mean, Chom Legend, he does Kylie Jenner's nails, was there. Fariha Ali, also known as Nail Job. And also Robert Nguyen, who's the owner. He's legendary in the industry. It was just, I don't know, it's a lot of camaraderie.
What does nail school look like? You're like going to, you would imagine like nail school, like going to a class and like there's a professor and
yeah, there's instructors. It's a combination. I think really in California, because every state has their own requirements, like the hours change. In California, you're required to take 400 hours of nail school and then you take your practicum. That probably changed, I'm not sure. But the main goal is to learn sanitation and how to do services in a clean way without causing any infections and things like that. And you learn about the anatomy of a nail. There's not a lot of time spent necessarily on technique at the time. Because when you get tested, it's like on particular things. Like you do learn about acrylics because that's part of the test, but it's more about making sure that you know all the information to pass your written exam and then to be able to do the practice in front of the moderator or whoever is doing the testing. But it's a lot of lecture and a lot of hands-on. Really, the priority is sanitation, in my opinion, which is why I think continuing education is so important beyond nail school, because that's when you learn about the actual techniques to do things.
Yeah, I was listening to It's a Nail Thing, another podcast. And talking about the experience of being in a salon and like that's where you actually get the experience of like being able to paint other people's nails.
Yeah, because it depends. Everybody's experience is different. But yeah, that was really something amazing about working in a salon is when you didn't have a full book or when you were still new. I never had a full book because I was only there on Saturdays and I'm still learning. I had a lot of downtime. And so I would learn from my peers like their nail art techniques. I learned how to stamp in the salon and my boss put me on Facebook Live as soon as I learned it. And I was so nervous, but it was like me practicing how to teach and be on camera and do nails at the same time. So it was all a good experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So then how are you getting clients at that point? Or is it just people walking in?
A lot of walk-ins. It was a salon in Beverly Hills and they also did a lot of Groupon. So that way.
And then are people just getting like a simple color or were you doing like crazy stuff on them?
It was a combination of a lot of pedicures,
okay.
Single color gel and some nail art. What was really cool about that salon in particular is that it branded itself as a nail art salon. So it was really cool that we did get to do nail art.
Because that's also I feel like you're known for nail art on your Instagram now, I would say.
I love nail art. I think for a really long time, I was trying to figure out, I thought I had to do it all. I thought I had to be good at acrylic. I thought I had to be good at hard gel. I thought I had to be good at gel extensions. Gel X wasn't a thing then yet, but I thought that I had to do it all. And I'm happy that I realized that I don't. And I could just focus on what makes me happy and what I think I'm good at, which is like really minimalistic, bright colors, simple nail art. And also I have a passion for teaching people how to paint their own nails. And so that's kind of what I focus on more today.
Yeah, because also you have your viral famous ghosties nail art, which is very timely as we're coming up on October. How did that start? And also, like, what was that? Because it's like massively viral, right? Like, I feel like I see them everywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's really humbling. They've taken a life of their own. At the time, it was 2019 and I was working at OPI. And I loved painting my nails for work. It's not that it was a requirement, but it's, again, like a self-expression. And I had filmed content and it was like a black French with like a spider web or something. My Cindy was naked and I was like, I'm just going to do something simple. And it turned into the ghost. And I realized like, wow, I did that with my non-dominant. This is really easy. It's actually really cool. And the reaction was phenomenal. It was my first post to go viral. It had over 1,000 likes and at the time was major for me. And then the recreations started like coming in and it was just so nice. And also for people to credit me because I know credit's like giving credit where credit's due is a thing in our community. It was nice. It's kind of one of the magical things I feel like about the nail industry or the community. So
wait, I want to go back to, because you said you worked at OPI. So what was that process of like working in the salon and then transitioning to, was it corporate OPI? Like what would you call it?
Yeah, so I was working at Nails Magazine.
Okay.
And Nails Magazine, what I really wanted to focus on at that point was more social media and the website content. And so there was actually an opportunity at the competitor. So I moved on to work at Nail Pro. And so I was at Nail Pro for about 2 years where I was the digital content manager and I managed all of the content on their websites and I managed all of their social media pages. Then is when I realized that it was getting harder to kind of stay there because the budgets from brands, instead of buying full page ads in the magazine or instead of buying an Instagram post on the Nail Pro channel, they just didn't have the budget for it anymore. And so I figured if I can't work at the magazine, maybe I should work brand side. So there was an opportunity and an opening at OPI. So there was OPI corporate, and I was part of their education team, which was like an extension of marketing.
How did you find out about the job?
I found out about the job because I put out feelers in my network. Okay. I went back to people who I've known in the industry for a really long time, and I knew I wanted to go brand side, but I didn't know exactly what that meant. And I reached out to people in my network. I think one thing to keep in mind is the nail industry is so small. And people change jobs, they change direction, and you never know where they're going to end up. And so it's really important to stay in contact with people and see what opportunities can come up. And so I had a friend of mine who let me know that they had an opening on the internal corporate team, and the interview process was like 2 months long. And they even made me do like a nail test where I had to do nails on a model using their dip system just to show that I had the skills if I was going to be the educator. So I had like a panel interview as well, and it was very serious. It was the most corporate-y job that I've had, but I learned a lot.
So then you were the educator. So what was that?
I was not the educator.
Oh, okay.
I actually managed the education team.
Okay.
So OPI has, or at least back then, had a team of educators across the United States and Canada. Well, I was just North America, so that includes the US and Canada. And so my job was managing the education team, and their role is and it changed. Their role was to teach at nail schools. Their role was to do demo days at beauty supply stores. I mean, internally, I guess I was the educator. So if there was any like innovation that we were working on, I was always like part of the first people to test it and things like that, or teach the sales team about what is infinite shine and why is it a 3-step system and how is that different from nail lacquer and how's that different from dip powder and what about gel polish? Where does that fit in the mix? And
I feel like for me, like sometimes it is when I'm like talking to these people and at these companies, like they don't paint their nails or like not as much as we do. So like a lot of times they're like telling me to like do this and use this base coat. And I was like, I mean, I'll do what you want, but like, I don't know. This doesn't seem right.
Yeah, it's actually, I think it's funny you mentioned that because I did work with a lot of people on the marketing team who for them, nails was like a pit stop in their career.
Yeah.
Because they either wanted to pursue different types of beauty or just non-beauty marketing things. But nails for me is my life, is my passion. And so the passion was always there in the meetings, and for other people, it's just a bottle of nail polish or.
Were you interacting with like content creators at that time through like OPI, or were you just like managing the educators and working in the corporate side?
Such a good question. When I got hired, my role hadn't existed before.
Okay.
But they knew that they needed somebody in that role. And so the good thing about that is that I got to define what my job was. And so, yeah, it was managing the educators. It was putting on educator trainings. But then I'd also, because of COVID, social media and more content was a thing. And I did manage my own budget. I did work with content creators. And at that time, I was working with my education partner who together we created a program where we were hiring content creators to create educational content that also aligned with the goals of the social media team, because the education team is a different team than the social media team, and the social media team is a different team than the digital team. And everybody has different goals. And when you can work together in that synergy, it's something really beautiful. So eventually I was working with content creators and hiring them for content, which was really fun. Yeah, I was the one booking the creators. I was the one filing all the paperwork to pay them, collecting the invoices, managing the budget, negotiating rates.
And then what was where were you at in your personal social media journey at that time? Because you still had your own Instagram at this whole time.
Yeah. The whole time I was creating content on Nail Art by Sig. 2021 was when I was tired. I was tired, and I really gave OPI, everything. I gave them my heart and soul, and I figured I'm still young enough to give myself the same heart and soul and bet on myself. And if I fail, at least I tried. And if I didn't try, I was going to have some feelings about it. So I quit my corporate job in July 2021 without a plan. It's not like I had brand deals waiting for me. Yeah. I just thought, I'm really tired, and I know that this is something that I love, and I think there's a lot of potential there. So let's just see what happens.
Well, it definitely worked out. That's for sure. Right? But how was it like working with these other creators as you are a creator yourself, right? Did you like learn things from these creators about how to pitch or how to interact with like brands from them? I
think one thing about me is I deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. And that came from me landing this corporate job from a journalism job. And I felt like I didn't really fit in, or I wasn't really sure how or why I got there. And I still feel that way today as a content creator, because I'm doing this without a plan, and it feels like I'm kind of freeballing this whole thing. But what I learned from the brand side is kind of more about how the brand operates. The brands operate with budgets that go from like July through June versus January through December. It changes per brand, deadlines, how to manage projects, kind of more the analytical side of my brain. But in terms of working with content creators, it was more of just like community building, and seeing them for what their expertises are, because every artist has something special to share. And so kind of leveraging them for those things.
Yeah. So I think so. I think that's like there's one partnership I have where sometimes I feel like they don't actually want my opinion on like what I'm doing. They just want me to do it exactly how they tell me. And then they're like, no, actually, we don't like what we told you to do. And I'm like, yeah, I did exactly what you wanted.
No, I relate to that so much, because I think the things when you work, and I have empathy towards that on both sides, because from my corporate brain tells me they have goals and metrics that they have to meet, but they're not really sure how to get there.
Okay, that's where I'm like, what are these goals? Like, I'm like, if you tell me the goals, like maybe we could work on it together. But like maybe they don't want to like, I mean, then I'm like doing their job with them, which is like, I don't know. But
okay, so let me try to like give an example. So as a brand, obviously there's the bottom line. There's literally a dollar amount that the brand wants to make every quarter, ultimately every year. And there's always pulse checks every month. Where are we doing? Where can we do better? What are initiatives that we've tried this month that worked? What are things that we tried that didn't work? And content creation is still a new thing for a lot of brands. And working with creators looks different for a lot of people. When I was with OPI, I was hiring, I think, between 10 to 12 different creators. But now that same brand has a group of 4 creators that they only work with because they felt like maybe that's more efficient for them. So it's always it's a test and learn. It's never going to look the same. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I've had that experience where you work with a brand and then the brief is the brief, but then you give them literally what's on their brief and it's not. And then they tell you this is what we wanted, but it's like, no, but that's literally what you said.
Like, I even told you, like, we could try other things. And you're like, nope, you have to do that. And they're like, we don't like it. I was like, what?
And I think that's part of, as amazing as our jobs are, I think it's probably the biggest pain point. But at the same time, like, look how lucky we are where that's our biggest problem.
I have to paint my nail again? Yeah.
Exactly. It is frustrating though. I mean, when I was managing creators, there was one in particular who was super genius, and she actually made me sign a contract saying like, we're both agreeing on this brief, and if anything changes, like, that's on you. You have to pay me more. And I was like, okay, I respect that.
That's smart.
Yeah. Or also late payments. I don't know if this has happened to you, but it definitely happens to me, where they say net 30 and you're like on, the 40th day and you're like, hi, it's me. Where's my money? And they're like, oops. I had a creator
like,
one time.
Yeah, that's not going to do it for me. Tell my landlord, oops.
I know. She made me sign a contract where for every 15 days that her payment was late, she'd get a X percentage more off her rate. And there was one time I paid a creator an extra $3,000 because we were late on paying her. And I was like, good for you.
Well, that's like, I was dealing with somebody, they were net 60, which is like already like fine, whatever.
Brutal.
And they had so many of these revisions. A month later, we finally like finished the thing. And then it was like 2 more weeks go by that I had to fill out a Google form to like input my name, and then that was how I was going to get paid. So then it was already like a month and a half, then my 60 days start. So I was like, okay, like, I don't know. Anyway, the struggles.
What's the longest someone's taken to pay you?
I think it might have been them. What is that? 100 days?
For me, it was literally 8 months.
Did you charge extra?
No, because I didn't sign anything. So
you were just like,
me.
You were like, I'll just take anything at this point.
Literally, the email thread was like 200 exchange.
And what were they saying? Like, oh, yeah, it's coming. Or
it was a combination of delayed replies, a combination of let me circle back, a combination of can you sign this paperwork? Can you redo this paperwork? And all of that accumulates to a long time.
So what is happening on the brand side at that point? Like, because I try to remind myself that, like, another example is like I'm working through an agency. So I'm like, there's another even like whole level of like 10 people, I'm guessing, and then like going back to the agency. And then there's like 10 people. And then it's like, so I imagine it takes a long time to respond. But I'm like, what is actually happening? What's happening? What's in your mind like happening on these brand side?
They have meetings to go to. This nail art video isn't the only thing on their plate. It's one of 100 things on their plate. As much as we're passionate about what we do, it's not necessarily priority for them. So it's up to us to give them grace as well, I think, because they're people too. And they, nails may not be their passion like it is ours. And so if they're going to necessarily maybe not prioritize that on their day to day, and they get to it when they get to it type of thing, maybe.
I mean, I think that's good to remember too, because sometimes you're like, they didn't like, like whatever. It's like, no, they just, they have a million other things to do.
It's so busy. I mean, one thing I don't miss is being in a meeting from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It was just back-to-back meetings about different projects with different departments, about different things going on. And it's not just the one collection. Like when we see a collection go live, the brand's been working on that for over a year. Yeah. And they're already working on the next thing. So it's just a lot going on in the back end that we should just keep in mind.
Are there things you think like would make communication with brands smoother for them? Like, should I give like a synopsis of like the problem or like the response? Like, I don't know if are there ways you communicate with brands now because you are on the brand side that you're like, this would have been helpful for me. Like, let me do this for you.
I feel like keeping the email short is efficient.
Okay.
I don't think that they're interested in excuses. If for some reason you can't meet the deadline, there's really no point in sharing an excuse. But if you can't meet the deadline because the product isn't going to arrive on time, that's something worth flagging, So it's just making sure that you over communicate those things that aren't going to get in the way of you meeting the project at the time that you guys agreed upon, but also don't bombard them with so much information because they're reading 100 emails or more a day, So just keep it short, get to the point, and also just be pleasant. I think that goes a long way. Like if you're easy to work with, it's going to make their job easier and just kind of keep them happy too.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's the same for probably content creators too, where we're like, we don't want to make this a headache, right? Like we want this to be easy. Like if it's really complicated and it takes 8 months to get paid, like, did you work with those people again?
I did. I had bills to pay. And the second time around, they paid on time.
Okay, well, we learned. No, I think that's good advice to like keep it short, right? To the point.
Yeah, I'll sometimes be like stressing out. I'll like stress out about an email and my husband's like, just keep it short, just keep it short. And it's honestly the best advice. They don't need to hear about what happened at Target because I couldn't find a clean bottle or a clean box that wasn't wrinkled or, some weird thing. I couldn't find it. What should we do next? Or here's an alternative solution. I think also coming up with an alternative solution is always helpful because they have so many things they're probably bogged down with. But if you can think of an alternative or a different idea or a different approach, that's always really helpful.
So, celebrity nail artist. What's the deal? How did because you painted Harry Styles' nails. What is your title for pleasing?
Pleasing named me the first ever manicurist for pleasing. And that's what I use in my media kit. Also, if you don't have a media kit as a creator, definitely make one. I'd be happy to talk about that. It does wonders for me. Yeah, for sure.
Tell us your secrets.
Okay, so a media kit. A lot of people think that a media kit has to include your rates. I do not include my rates in a media kit. You don't want to put yourself in a box in terms of what your deliverables cost because it changes deal by deal, right? But my media kit has pictures of me, pictures of my work, and everything is linked. I use canva.com to create my media kit. It has a short bio, my name, my handle, and about me. So where I'm from, my journalism background, my career background, how I got into nails, a little bit about projects I've been working on recently. And then my second page is kind of the featured in or have collabed with. And it's a collage of brands that I've been featured in. So I've been featured in Vogue, Teen Vogue, Allure, XYZ, and then the brands that I've partnered with. And then my contact information. Whenever you're working with a new partner or whenever there's turnover at a brand that you've been working with for a long time, they don't know you. And so it's kind of like you said, the spark notes of who I am. And it just makes you look really polished. And it doesn't necessarily say, please work with me. Just here's a little bit about me in case you think there's a project we can work on in the future that you think I'd be perfect for. Because my media kit says, I love nail art, I love nail care. And then here are my highlights. And so if that's something that they're working on in the future, I may or may not be a good fit for that. So whenever I have somebody new come into my inbox or whenever I'm reaching out to somebody, I always add my media kit. Or even if somebody comes and says, hey, can I send you PR? Hey, I don't really have the capacity for PR right now, but if there's ever an opportunity for any paid collaborations, let me know. Here's my media kit for a little bit about me. And then that's kind of that.
I like that because I feel like I'm definitely at that point where I'm like, I physically do not have any more space. I'm hanging polish from the ceiling. I don't, it's not possible.
Yeah, and it's not you being rude because I mean, the brand themselves wants to make sure that their samples, because samples cost money. I know this now working with Cutie Oils, samples that we send out, that means I lost money on that. But it's also an investment, right? So you want to make sure that your investment goes to people who are actually going to give your brand that love.
Yeah.
I don't have the capacity to give your brand that love, so give it to somebody else who does. Yeah. And it's not anything rude. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, I know that I won't be able to post something about it.
Exactly. And I think people would respect that more than expecting for you to post something and you never do. Then that kind of makes it weird.
Yeah. No, I like also going back to the media kit too of sending it to because there's a lot of times where you got to be like, oh, now I'm taking over for so-and-so, nice to meet you. And it's I've been working with this person for months and doing them extra things or building a rapport. And then you're like, okay, now okay, gone, whatever.
Yes, and you got to start all over.
Yeah. I think that also, you don't include any like metrics on that specific media kit?
Actually, my metrics are very simple. It includes my reach in the last 30 days, and that's a number that shows up on your analytics if you have the creator toggle on your Instagram page, or you can look that up on your TikTok. It includes the demographic divided by gender based on how they identify on the platform, and
followers probably.
Oh yeah, my follower count, obviously. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, follower count, demographic by gender. If you have the space for it in your media kit, location, because some brands care about where your reach is and what states particularly or what countries, and my engagement rate.
Okay, but you have to like change that every 30 days, or like do you just kind of?
Yes, I have to change it every 30 days. But it takes 2 seconds.
Okay.
Because I keep the file live on my Canva. One thing I will say, because I am super lucky where I could do this full time now. If I could go back and do something different, I would become an LLC sooner.
Okay.
So Nail Art by Sig is officially a business now. It's been a business since December last year, even though I've been doing this for 2 years. But yay! Why I would do that? Because it helps kind of separate your mindset between this is something that I'm doing for fun, whereas something that I can pay the bills and invest into my future. But also it helps separate, my biggest thing is expenses. Canva is an expense. If you buy Crystal's guide to content creation, that's an expense. If you buy nail polish or gallon of acetone, that's all something that you can expense for taxes later on. Your phone put, I have a 2-bedroom apartment. So part of my apartment I expense because this is my office, this is my nail room.
Yeah.
I'm not a tax expert, but it's just, if I could do something differently, it would be that. And also I've noticed that ever since I've been an LLC, I'm having less hiccups with payments.
Oh.
I don't know if it's because I have a different tax identification number or what it is, or the paperwork is different, but it's just been a lot smoother, especially with wire transfers. So the payments are coming in seamlessly.
That's always nice.
I know.
Because I am doing this full time now. It was never like, I guess also for you, like this was never really the plan. It just like happened.
Right.
So maybe
but that's the thing, like don't wait because you don't have, make it part of your plan, at least for the version of yourself that's doing this now.
Yeah.
And whatever costs associated with creating your LLC, you can expense those too. So
that's also true. So how, I mean, like, I want to get, okay, also going back to
Sorry,
Harry Styles. Bury the lead. No, but how did that happen? Like, how?
I asked myself the same thing, honestly.
You just like get a random email from like Pleasing and you're like, I've never heard of this. What is this weird company?
Pretty much.
It was before they even launched the brand.
I quit my corporate job in July 2021. 3 weeks later, I got a DM and an email from the same person who's a creative director at an agency and was like it was very mysterious,
vague.
This email.
Yeah.
Very vague. Hey, we're launching a nail polish brand with a super secret celebrity. Wondering if you're available for a photo shoot on this day in LA. And I'm like, okay.
How much?
So I said yes. I was like, yeah, what's the budget? And I got on the phone with her. And the thing that threw me was that she's like, the client asked for you directly. And I'm like, okay. And so
that's an ego boost, even before you know who it is.
No, it's funny. You'd think that that's an ego boost, but instead of me being like, oh, now I'm confident, I was like, oh, the pressure, you know?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. And I'm kind of I always go for the negative for some reason. Internally, when it comes to my friends, I'm always very optimistic and stuff, and I'll root for you and all that stuff. But anyway.
We're our own worst critics.
100%. I'm working on it. But yeah, so she still didn't mention who it was. I had to sign an NDA. And when I signed the NDA, we went over the mood board for the expectations for the photo shoot, all the nail changes. And on the mood board, it was H's nails and like all the jewelry. And I'm like, that's vaguely specific, but okay.
So then did you have an inkling that it was him or?
Well, okay, here's the thing. So we had a photo shoot scheduled for a Thursday, right? I'm talking to her Friday prior or something like that. 2 days after, I get a separate email from a separate contact who I don't know. They're new in my inbox. And they're like, hey, we're doing a photo shoot with Harry Styles for Days magazine. Are you available like tomorrow? And I'm like, what? I said, okay.
To paint his nails.
To paint his nails for a cover. And I'm thinking like, oh my God. And so I show up to set with my kit in tow and was very nervous. And when I get there, his stylist, who's also named Harry, was like, hey, we're excited to work with you on Thursday. And I'm like, what?
You
so
are?
It was connected,
like, I'm booked.
It just, I don't know. It was very magical how it all happened. So I worked with Harry on Tuesday for the cover of Days. It's in display on my little like wall here. And then when the job was, and then we used Pleasing that day and all the nail stickers, and I learned more about the brand and stuff. And we were going to shoot the content for the launch 2 days later. But that Tuesday was just for the cover shoot because he was going to be featured in the magazine and they were going to talk about the launch of Pleasing. But I'll never forget this. I'm like getting ready I'm like, my kid is packed. I'm done for the day. And Harry's sitting in a chair with the makeup artist or whatever. And I'm asking the crew, is it cool for me to leave? And I'm checking with the team and everybody, trying to excuse myself and say goodbye or whatever. Does he need to take his nail polish off? I ask all the questions and they're like, no, Sig, you're good to go. You're released. And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, bye everybody. And then Harry turns around and he's like, bye Sig, I'll see you Thursday.
My God. You're like, yeah, you will.
This is the kindest human. Like, you remembered my name after the whole day. Just so sweet.
Had you done like house calls or like going to events and like press like this before? Like, how did you prepare? How did you know what to bring to like paint his nails on set? Like, I feel like that is a completely different thing you probably didn't learn in nail school specifically.
Yeah, I got really lucky because I used to do a lot of photo shoots with OPI.
Oh, okay.
For campaigns and stuff. So when I used to, my role at OPI was everything in between on-set manicurist, in-house educator, content creator, part-time, like this whole thing. But I had done on-set work through OPI. When I used to do photo shoots with Nails Magazine and Nail Pro, I would study what the nail techs would use in their kits. And in terms of like working on other people's hands, just practice with it had been a long time. And I knew I was going to work on Harry. So I actually painted my husband's hand the night before, just like to get some muscle memory back in motion. I'm always open for set work, but I don't have an agent at the moment. So it's just one of those few and far opportunities now. When the timing is right and the opportunity makes sense, I say yes to them.
Do you have to do like nail, like cuticle prep and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I come from the OPI world where the point of the photo shoot is the nails. Flawless cuticles, perfectly shaped nails, smooth application, clean cuticles, the whole hydrated hands, the whole thing. Whereas necessarily at other shoots, that's not the point. They just want to make sure that they have manicured hands. But one thing I felt really lucky about with the Pleasing shoot is the point was the nail polish. I had that experience. The one thing I wasn't prepared for, though, with the Pleasing shoot is that they had me under camera swatching on Harry's hand. And there was a room of like 20, 25 people staring at me, paint his hands, and I'm like, like shaking.
Under like hot lights, like super famous. I'm like,
I hope my sweat from my mustache doesn't fall on his knuckles right now.
I feel like I shake when I paint my own nails.
I shake too. Even when I'm shooting my own content, where I'm like, I gotta get the perfect smooth brush stroke, or it has to look seamless, or it has to look easy. Like, I shake too because I get in my own head.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just have to stop thinking.
Yeah, we had to take a break because she's like, go get some water, take a bathroom break. I was like, oh gosh. And even after the break, I was still kind of shaking, where he was like, it's okay. Like, you're okay. And I'm like, oh my God.
You're making it worse.
I'm like, don't, I'm like, oh, thank you. And when the content launched, people were commenting on it like, oh, you could see her shaking. And other people were like, wouldn't you be shaking too? And it's like, I'm human. I'm a person.
I I also imagine you're like probably like reaching way over, like it's probably so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I got super lucky where when the whole thing with pleasing happened, I thought I've peaked in my career. It's over. It's never going to get any better than this. I like cried, I think about it. I was like,
like in a bad way?
Yeah, I thought it was over.
Aw.
I thought like, this is it. Like, how do you move on from that in like a bigger, better way? But I got lucky because they called me back. And I got to work with them for their summer shoot for their holiday campaign. And we shot that in Santa Monica, like actually beachside. And at the time I was recovering from an ankle injury, and I showed up with my my ankle boot
Yeah.
and a cane and my nail kit in my other hand. And I was like limping to set. To your point about filming in like a compromising way, obviously the goal is to get the shot. And with OPI, like I had a really great partner who taught me like, whether your knees are on the floor, bent over, hunched over, it's temporary. We got to get the shot. And so I'm of that mindset. And so I had to like do an outline French tip on a hand model with my ankle boot on a chair with me hunched over and my arms extended because I couldn't have my head in the way in like the direct sunlight. An outline French tip with nail polish.
And you're like, can't even see. Like so hard. It was also with like drying nail polish like instantly in the sun. Like
Exactly. It wasn't gel, it was nail polish on her hand. It was crazy. Somehow I managed it. The nail gods are with me that day, but
I'd be like, fix it in post. Photoshop it later.
Ow, with CGI? Like, come on. There's no budget for that.
It's impossible. Oh my God. So, I mean, because like from the outside, it's interesting to like hear you talk about imposter syndrome, because like from the outside, like I'm like, you're killing it. Like you are living the nail dream. Like you, like I don't want to. But like it is true. Like you literally like flew to London with Essie and like did this huge campaign with them. Like I want to hear about this. But like it also, I think it is helpful for other people to hear your experience in that. Even if you have these like accolades, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to feel it in yourself, you know, like it has to be, it's more about yourself, that you can't like let other things tell you you're good. Like you have to feel it.
Yeah, no, you said that perfectly. And I think one thing that really resonated with me lately is listening to the podcast with Larissa. I had to thank her because she talks about how lonely this can be.
Yeah.
And it is. I spend 90% of my day in my nail room, and it's just me and my music, or it's just me and Netflix and the people who I interact with online.
And thousands of bottles of nail polish.
And the gang's all here. You know?
Yeah. But it's also, you don't get a lot of feedback, especially for corporate or bigger companies. Like a lot of the stuff, you do it far in advance and you just send it off. And then I don't know what's happening. And then I just see it posted randomly like a month later. And then I don't know, they're not telling me like, good, not that I need them to tell me good job, but like you don't really hear anything from them, or or like people will just be talking about the color. Like they don't care about who's actually painting the nail often.
It's funny because I thrive on like, hey, good job. Mm-hmm. Hey, you did really well on that. Like I thrive on that, or at least like when I'm in like in a work environment. And so now that I'm, you know, the talent, the editor, the accountant, the administrative assistant, like wearing all those hats, just, it makes me feel like I still don't know what I'm doing. And I'm not sure if I'll ever feel like I know what I'm doing, because I think the point is to continue to challenge yourself and continue to grow. So because I feel like I don't have both feet on the ground, it makes me feel like, well, what is happening?
In the way of like accounting and other stuff, or like even within like nail art, like are you even like feel like, I don't know if I can paint a ghost on my nail again this year? Like, is it that bad?
Well, it is that bad. I think because unfortunately, not every day is a good day. You know, we all have like days where we feel on top of the world and days where like, I'm a little emo today. And on those emo days, I tend to compare myself to other people online. Oh my God, they're so talented. Oh my God, look at that nail shape. Oh my God, that's the most incredible ombre I've ever seen. Or I can't do that. Or like, am I obsolete now? Like, I feel so ancient next to this like new slew of influencers who are killing it, you know? And so it makes me feel like, well, where do I fit in all this? But that's just my negative talk taking over, where it's like, what really should happen more, one thing I'm just practicing more is like, take those, thank you for sharing, brain. Thank you for sharing those negative opinions, but let's just kind of put those to the side and just move forward. I feel like because I've been doing this for so long, I want to get back to the space where I am just having fun again. Because I think now that it's full time, it seems more serious, where it seems like there's more at stake. If I don't land a deal, I can't pay my bills. I can't pay my rent, you know? So I made it more serious. And so I forget to have fun. So it's been nice to have creator friends who do this full time, who remind me to have fun. Because I can just kind of get stuck on that, where it's like the survivalist mentality. Because I am a daughter of immigrants. And so I know what it's like to like hustle and things like that. So yeah, I'm just trying to have more fun.
I know that is like, because I am recently now thinking of myself full time. Like this, like basically this whole year I've been like, I was like just graduated, like I'm taking a break and like not really doing anything else except nails. So I was like, I'm not full time. But now I'm like, wait, like I want to do this full time and like want to live in New York City and like not have to worry about trying to find a corporate job that I think I won't enjoy. But now I'm like, wait, now I need to like actually try to make these partnerships work. And like, it's like, maybe I should take this deal that's actually not good. Like just because I want like the money. So it is like, it's harder to like remind myself to set my boundaries. Cause I'm like, I want to make sure I can survive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's no shade in like taking a deal or a job opportunity because you have to pay the bills.
Yeah.
While still trying to make sure that you're paid what you're worth. You know, unfortunately, we just have ourselves to kind of look to for those type of answers because we're figuring this out as we go. But there's no right or wrong way to do it. But I think it's all that uncertainty that makes me nervous. Whereas instead of feeling nervous, I should feel excited because there is a lot of opportunity there. And so I am happy because I recently did a lot of organizing and purging in my nail space. And so I feel like it's opened up my mind a lot more. And so I'm happy we're doing this podcast today because I feel like I'm in a better space than I was like a couple months ago where I'm like, stress, you know?
Oh, no. Well, good. I feel like, and that's also something I'm like in therapy. I was talking to her. I was like, I started this new email address. It's nailbabepod, and I have abe.nailbabe, and I have my personal email, and I have different brands on different emails. And like, this is so, I was like, what am I talking about? And she was like, okay, you have to like do this, or you get to do this. Like you get to paint your nails. You get to move to New York City. It's not, you don't have to move to New York City and have to like move everything. You get to move. And that's exciting. Like that reframe, I feel like I really need to practice that too. It's like, I get to paint my nails. I get to refilm this and make it even better and make it even better for the brand, even though they still won't like it. But it is hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I resonate with that because I feel like in the moments where I'm being emo or in the moments where I'm feeling hard on myself or I'm feeling stressed, I feel like I'm being ungrateful because we are so lucky to do this every day. And then when I start feeling like I'm being ungrateful, then it kind of turns worse because I'm like, oh no.
Stop doing that. Yeah. You should be bad for feeling bad about feeling bad. Then I'm like, I just need to eat a bag of chips and lay in bed.
Honestly, with chopsticks though, I can't eat chips like regular anymore.
Just with my Cindy hand, but
no, not even because it shows up sometimes. Sometimes, depending how like deep like the swatch is, it can show. Nobody needs to know I eat hot Cheetos every day.
I don't know. What is a day in the life for you then? Like, are you in a good day? In a good day of like nail things? It's
funny too, because that's another thing that I'm still trying to figure out because I feel like my life or my day-to-day should look a certain way based on the fact that I know what it's like to have a job. But there's nobody telling me that. There's no like, I guess society is expecting of that and so I'm putting that same pressure on myself. But I'm still kind of allowing myself that grace to define that for me. So lately, my day-to-day looks like sleeping in. I'm a night owl, so I'll stay up late, so I wake up late. And then I spend the first couple of hours just for myself. I've been into podcasts lately, so thank you for that. I peek at my email, but I feel like mentally I'm not there yet. So I read it and then kind of think about what I'm going to say or how it makes me feel or kind of strategically what that means for the future or whatever. Just kind of soak in
mentally prepare.
Exactly. Mentally prepare for what's up ahead. And then I just get ready for content. What I always do first is I tackle the administrative stuff first. I'm a very much like vibes person. I'm a very much like how I feel. So I don't have a content calendar and I don't have a content plan. I don't batch create content. So I sit down and it's like whatever I feel like doing that day. So again, I'm trying to get back into the mindset of like, this is fun for me, not this is work for me. I edit normally right away because I shoot things with editing in mind.
Yeah.
It just saves me a lot more time.
I feel like I'm similar. Yeah, it's like depends on my mood. Like I don't paint my nails every day. Like, and if I don't feel like painting my nails or posting, I don't. Because if you do, like that's when it becomes like, this is the worst thing ever. And like I feel terrible. And then it ends up being something that I'm like, I hate this post. Why did I do this? Like, and then I go in the spiral of like, this was not a good post. Compare it to people and
Absolutely. And I feel like I go through that. I'm not going to speak for other people, but I go through that as well. Absolutely. So right now I'm very much of like, what's the vibe? What excites me? What makes me inspired? Because being in that moment where it feels like a chore or where it feels like a really tough task to get through, I feel like sucks a lot of the fun out of it. And it shows, I think.
I was going to say, yeah, you can tell, at least for like the creator.
Or I could tell for myself for sure. Yeah.
I feel like we didn't really cover the transition from like corporate OPI to being a full-time nail creator. Like what was the internal monologue or like how did you fight this imposter syndrome of like, I'm going to leave this job. I'm fully immersed in OPI. Like I love this. I'm getting to do what I love, but I have to bet on myself. Right. And like do this new thing. Like how did you work through that, I guess? Because I think a lot of people might resonate with the like, I like doing nails, but I don't know if I should take this seriously or in any aspect of their life too, like starting a new thing.
I'm still figuring it out, I think. But one thing that did help me make the choice is I had like a safety net financially. I had saved a lot of money. So I knew that I could pay my rent for X amount of months and pay my bills if I didn't get a brand deal, or if I didn't get paid on time or whatever that looked like. Mm-hmm. I have a supportive partner. My husband is my number one fan. And I've always like been a believer to chase your dreams, even if people laugh at them, because nobody's going to understand really unless like only yourself. And sometimes too, I feel like when you dream big, like you can't even articulate what that goal is. Like my family or my mom, like she loves me, of course. I'm not sure she still understands what I do, but she knows that I am self-sufficient and that makes her proud of me, you know? So I think if something in your gut is telling you to do it, it's not going to be easy and I cry a lot, I think. And people don't see that. My friends see that, but other people don't. But I think it's something worth trying because I would hate to think that I didn't try everything that I wanted to. I don't want any resentment toward myself or have something inside form and then we take it out on other people because I feel like I'm not satisfied with what I've created out of my life. And everything can be temporary. You don't have to be a full-time creator for like indefinitely. You can try it for 6 months and if it didn't work, then move on and do something different. Like at least you tried it.
Yeah.
At least give yourself that, you know?
I like that too. It's like, it takes the pressure off too. Like, I feel like I still want to like find another creative outlet like in New York or like find another job that like is related more to architecture. Like, I'm not going to not paint my nails or like make content. Like, I still want to do that. I guess I want to be open to opportunity. I think that maybe sounds like you were that in the way of like, okay, like I'm looking for a new job. Like I have a journalism degree, but like this isn't really working out. So I'm going to pivot to like nails or then like OPI and then Harry Styles and then Essie in London. Like it was just...
Yeah, like you won't know if things don't work if you don't give it a try. And if things aren't working, try something different. Like you can't be stuck on doing the same thing if it's not working. Even now, like as a full-time creator, I'm not sure how long I can do this for or how long the creator economy is going to be a thing. So I think about like, will I go back to school one day? Do I want to get my master's in business or marketing? Maybe. I tried doing color theory school and that was interesting. Like it's not everything's finite. I guess just, the final chapter hasn't been written. There's more story to tell. You may not know what that looks like now, but don't close yourself off because you're afraid. Of course, we're all afraid, but it's worth exploring.
Yeah, I think also we keep talking like imposter syndrome, but like you have imposter syndrome, like I guess you said, but like that didn't stop you from actually like painting hairstyles as nails or like flying to London and like doing a mural, like right, like you have this, but you're not gonna let it stop you from taking these opportunities.
Yeah, I keep hearing this phrase being tossed around. Two things can be true at the same time. I can have my insecurities and I can be confident in my skills because I know I've done the work. I've put in the work. I've been doing this for 10 years. It's not like this just happened overnight. It's not like this just fell on my lap. I have been doing the work, but I'm the one that needs to remind myself of that because I tend to forget of how far I've come and what I've done. Because sometimes it feels like, oh, I just landed this, but it's like, no, girl, you've been done working. You've been putting in the hours. Like it makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. Because that is true. That's another thing my therapist says. Like two things can be true. And like you need to remember both sides. Like, and your feelings of like, your feelings are valid of like insecurity or like things like that. But that doesn't mean that you're not also great and amazing and killing it in the nail world. Right?
That's very kind of you.
Well, it's true. It's true. Well, I want to thank you again for being here and talking to me about your career, your journey, being a lovely human being. Follow Sig, Nail Art by Sig, everywhere.
And thank you for doing this. Right now in real time, I've only listened to 3 episodes, but those 3 episodes have really inspired me and kind of reminded me of why I started this in the first place. And it's like people like you who find kind of like the specialness in all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. I feel like that is,
of course,
like going back to Larissa too, like it can feel lonely creating in our own little bubble, but like to have this community and be able to talk to people and know that everyone has imposter syndrome now and again. And so it makes me feel good that we're in good company.
Aww, thank you.
Okay. How is that? I am obsessed with Sig. I love her openness and willing to share. I have some comments. Non-nail artist says, BRB, watching and taking all the notes. This is from the Base Coat Stories interview. Picture Polish says, loved your nail chat, Abe and Base Coat Stories. Such informative, warm, and vibrant personalities. Thanks. Jackie Shades says, okay, but Jasmine and Abe's comments about the coffee cup on the nail when you're saying it's not 2010, I shout laughed. Is that a thing? Well, I'll take it. I want to thank Sig again for being on the show and for everyone who's listening. Please rate and review the pod, and I'll see you next Thursday. Now, I have to paint my nails.